We're just getting started. We're going to let everybody come in. We're actually going to stop your videos and stop your sound for the initial part, just to help us out with the speaker, just to have it be a little bit easier for the speaker to be heard and to be seen. So if you have your video on, you can stop it. If not, our guru in the back, Miss Natalie, will make sure that all the videos and everybody is muted throughout this event. It's kind of fun to see everybody's backgrounds. Got somebody here with a parrot. And welcome, welcome. We're just going to wait for another minute or two and then we'll get started. Want to give everybody a chance to get here. One of the great things about our webinars is that they are posted on YouTube. So if you get locked out or something happens and you have to go away, you can always come back to YouTube. In addition, we host or we encourage people to let other people know about the webinars that are included on our YouTube video channel, which is under Austin Up. So without further ado, we'll get started. My name is Cindy Cummings. Welcome to our webinar series on jobs. I am a volunteer with Austin Up, and I just want to tell you a little bit about Austin Up. Austin Up's vision is to create a region that responds to aging as a dynamic rather than a stagnant force. We are all aging all the time, and we want to make Central Texas a place that supports each of us at every age. And Austin Up is #1 in a lot of things. Excuse me, Austin is #1 in a lot of things, but not when it comes to employment for older workers. Austin Up is working to enlighten employers about the value of a multi-generational workspace. We also will be holding 4 50+ and ATX job fairs across the community. We did that before COVID, and we're super excited about those. I'll tell you a little bit more about when those will be. And these events connect older job seekers to employers, and they include presentations to help older adults. So we help to repurpose a long career to pursue new interests. We help navigate the new technology involved in resume submittal and maintain self-confidence during the job search. In addition, we are going to be holding 6 webinars throughout 2022 to provide valuable information for job seekers. And this is our first one for 2022. And it's a doozy, it's awesome. We are also bringing, well, I told you about the job fairs and they're going to be coming back. We try to hold them in different geographic areas. What our hope is that people will attend the job fair in the area in which they live. So it'll make it a little bit easier for them to get to the job. They won't have as many expenses and travel, won't be spending all their time in the car and things like that. So our first is going to be north. It's going to be held at Affinity Living Communities. They're over 55 senior apartment, and they're located on Owen Tech Boulevard. That's going to be April 6th. All this information will be on our website soon. So you can also come back to our website within about a week and we'll have all the information updated there. Our next one will be in May. It'll be May 11th. And all of these are from 10 to 12. And it will be held at Solea. Solea is an over 55 apartment community, and they're located in Cedar Park. They're very centrally located, great parking, easy to get to. The next will be September 14th. It will be held at Shalom Austin on Hart Lane. We have, gosh, we've had 2 or 3 events there. Extremely successful, great parking, great vendors, lots of employers. And then again, we're going to have breakout sessions, and the breakout sessions will be there to support job seekers. So oftentimes, again, it's on resume building and things like that. And then our last will be in October, and we haven't hit the South area, so we'll be going south, someplace south, Austin. And again, these events are wonderful events to help job seekers who are over 50. We want to thank AARP for helping to sponsor these events. I also wanted to tell you a little bit more about Austin Up. In addition to helping older adults find work, we provide events that help to support our mission of meeting the unmet needs of Central Texas aging population. We have several upcoming events we wanted to tell you about. So the first is an event with Capital City Village. And let me see if my technology is working here. Actually, I'll go to the livability. I see that in here first. This is an event that is it's a partnership. And oftentimes when we do events, it's a partnership with other nonprofits or businesses. And this particular one is the 2022 Livability for Longevity Symposium. And the theme is Changing Care Needs in an Aging Metropolis. It's going to be Thursday, April 14th. It is from 2 to 5. It will be at the LBJ School of Public Affairs. It'll be in their Bass Lecture Hall. It's a free event. It's hosted by Austin Up, the City of Austin Commission on Seniors, and the LBJ School of Public Affairs. And it's really to explore policy and planning for an age-friendly Austin. So that is one of our upcoming events. We're very excited about that. Now let me see if I can get my technology working. Anybody else have trouble with technology? I'll tell you, having to learn all this is, it's been interesting. I think it's good for my brain. Let me see if I can get the next one up. The next one is an event. Let me see if I can share it with you. That we are partnering with Capital City Village. So Capital City Village is an amazing program, an amazing opportunity for people who live within the city of Austin to participate in online events. Now they're online, and in-person events. They do so many things for older adults that we wanted to get the word out about them. And they want to help teach their members about Austin Up. So we're doing a mutual event together. It's going to be a membership drive for Capital City Village. So we're hoping that they'll get some new members. It's going to be on February 17th. It's from 2 to 3, and it's an online Zoom event. And basically what we hope to do is just communicate the benefits of membership for Capital City Village. And these are some of their benefits. They have trusted volunteers that help with tasks in members' homes. They drive members to medical and other appointments. They also have a list of vetted service providers that are able to provide members with products and services and also receive a discount. To me, the most important thing is they offer these social and educational and many other enriching programs, and so many of them are free. And what we're hearing is that so many of our older adults, included, are isolated right now because of COVID. And so again, we hope that this membership will be of benefit to people who already know about Austin Up, and then Capital City Village is sharing this information with their members so they can learn a little bit more about Austin Up. So that's going to be in May, or excuse me, that's going to be in February, on February 17th. In addition, we're going to be partnering with the City of Austin, and AARP is going to be one of our sponsors. It is a one-day event, and the one-day event is going to be a hybrid event. So not only can you come in person, we're also going to be doing it hybrid. And this event is around the national celebration of older Americans, which is the month of May, and they have a theme each year, and the theme is Age My Way, which I love that. And so we're going to be having a one-day event celebrating the Age-Friendly Austin plan update and Age My Way. And it's a one-day event. It's going to be a hybrid event. And initially, we're just going to present the Austin age-friendly plan and where we started and where we are now. And then what's really cool is we're going to have breakout sessions on different subject matter that we're going to be able to ask older adults their feedback on. And oftentimes, we get information, but we don't have the opportunity to share information. This is going to be a great way for older adults to be in front of not only city leaders, but nonprofits and businesses, and for those people to hear the answers to the questions that are asked that will help us to make Austin a better place for our aging adults. So we're really excited about that. That's going to be in May. We have lots of other things planned and horizon things, but for now, that's what we got. And again, I want to thank AARP for being our sponsor for our event today, and also for being our one of our sponsors in May. So without further ado, I can't wait. We are going to be introducing our speaker, and her name is Camille. And Camille, when you can, just come on in. Camille is the founder of Remote Work School, a program in which she coaches semi and working retirees how to get remote work so that they can live a flexible lifestyle without worrying about money. She left her 20-plus career in corporate training in 2016 to travel full-time in an RV, one of my dreams, and reinvent herself to work remotely. She has worked 12 different remote jobs and started a business from her RV. Camille has helped over 600 people find the right remote work, either working for someone else or themselves. And you can find her and Natalie, if you don't mind, if you'll put her website in our chat, and then people can just click on it. Camille, I had a chance to go to your website, and it just got me so excited about this potential of remote work. And I know so many people are just looking for a new way to work. They don't want to go click a time card and work from 8 to 5. And I read with great interest your website. So I would encourage everybody to go to her website. But Camille, welcome. We're so happy
Thank
that
you.
you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Austin is one of my favorite cities, and
Oh,
I can't wait to get back. And I love your event on April 14th. I might have to fly out just for that. So
I
we'll
love
see.
it. I love it. Well, I think our format for today, you're going to have a presentation that you're going to go through, a PowerPoint presentation. And what we would encourage is for all participants to just put your questions. There's an area down at the bottom. Sometimes it gets named something different. Sometimes it's chat, sometimes it's question answer. Please, we encourage you to go ahead and put any of your questions that you might have in the question answer chat area. And when Camille is done, I will ask her the questions. And that's basically our format. So it's not too fancy, and it's probably pretty normal for how everybody else does it. Somebody is asking about the event on the 14th. If you don't mind, we'll give you more information and send you to our website so you can get more information about that. And Camille, I'm going to go offline. You're on your own. I'll let you know if there's something technically going on, but let's go.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me. I will do my best to watch the chat. I know that questions will come in, and I'm sure someone will pop in and stop me and let me know. Happy to answer any questions. I do move a little quickly. However, you'll see at the end that I have an option for you to attend another free training similar to this if you want to see this again. So my goal today for everyone here, and I've learned a little more about you. I've asked questions, with the host today. I wanted to get to understand your needs and what you're looking for. So my goal is to help you focus on the right remote work opportunities for you so that you can live a life of flexibility and freedom. Now, I understand that not everyone here is into remote work or thinks that remote work is right, but I encourage you to at least listen with an open mind to as much as you can, because I do believe that for a lot of people, remote work is the new retirement plan. So let me talk about who this training is best suited for. I work a lot with people who are semi-retired or people who say they're retired, but yet they're still working. So for example, I ran into a woman just the other day, 65 years old, working at Trader Joe's, bagging groceries. Another woman who was giving a tour that I was on, who was also working in retirement. And so more and more, I find that people are either working in retirement for income or to stay viable and have purpose, and they enjoy it. And so whatever it is for you, or maybe you are someone leaving the traditional workforce as well, it's not always only retirement. The goal is that a lot of people want to get remote work to supplement their income or to stay engaged in the workforce. And so this training works for two camps. These would be people who, or this could be for you, if you want to work for yourself. So I find that a lot of people at this phase of life are really interested in either some kind of a business that's their own, or a side gig, or doing something part-time, maybe using the skills they've built up over a lifetime. I know you all talk about that at Austin Up in new ways. Or maybe you want to work for someone else because the idea of a business or doing things on your own isn't that appealing. But I find that most people at this phase want to do something more part-time, not necessarily a full-time, but even if you do want full-time work, this can still work. So if you can relate to either of these scenarios, this training will be especially good for you. So to introduce myself a little bit more, I am Camille. I am the founder of Remote Work School. I'll talk just a little bit about that near the end of today's training. I'm a former corporate trainer. I put 20 plus years. I don't like to say more than that, even though it is more than that, because I find that there is ageism in the workplace, as you all know, and there are little tricks and ways that you can avoid aging yourself out of opportunity. So I'm 20 plus year career in corporate training. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I also have my master's in counseling psychology, and you'll see a little bit of that come up today in our presentation. Now, I got my start in the early to mid 90s. If you may remember, it was the Welfare to Work program was all the rage. And what that program did was help get people off of welfare and public assistance back into the workforce. So that is where I got my start. I worked with thousands of people in big groups, helping them retool their resumes, helping them interview, helping them find opportunities that made sense if they had been out of the workforce or maybe even never in the workforce. Then I went on to become that corporate trainer. That's that badge on the right. You can see how worn out that badge is. And my background is really in classrooms, like with real live humans, not online. And I really miss it. I can't, that's why I want to go to whatever events Austin Up is having in person, hopefully soon, because I really miss people and I miss being in the classroom. But I've been dabbling with remote work all the way back, really. If I go really far back, believe it or not, in the 90s, I was actually doing a little bit of stuff online, but really since about 2014 is when I got my start working remotely. People always want to know if I have children. I don't, but I do have a little sister. I'm a volunteer big sister with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters organization. And I've been with her for 8 years. She's in nursing school now, and I'm super proud of her. In 2016, I walked away from that very long corporate career in corporate training. I got into an RV with my husband. We had never RV'd before. We quit our jobs. At that point, 2016, I was at the height of my career. Terrible time to quit a job, by the way. Sold all of our possessions, did all the things that people do, got in an RV, started traveling and really reinventing ourselves to do something new, really remote work, which we didn't know at the time would be such a huge thing. This picture here on the bottom, I actually worked in Thailand during this time as well. And this is a retreat where I was helping women retool their skills to start working in a freelance business remotely. And then this is just a really funny picture of me jumping because, when you have a lifestyle brand like I do, you should have at least one picture of you jumping in the air and looking like you're abundantly happy. Plus I got really big air, so I had to show that off. So as you've heard just a little bit, you maybe didn't hear this, but I started a blog called More Than a Wheelin'. That is an RV and remote work blog. You can find that at morethanawheelin.com in addition to my regular website. And yes, I have worked 12 different jobs or have earned income in 12 different ways over the last 5 years, really experimenting with my own skills, my talents, my what do I like? What don't I like? What do I want to do differently? Really going through that sometimes painful process of figuring it all out. And that turned into remote work school, which I'll talk about, like I said, at the end, where I've supported now nearly 700 people in that program, helping them find new ways to earn income really remotely, or at least hybrid. And I know what it's like to leave behind safety and security to reinvent myself remotely and live life on my terms. So I have the knowledge plus the experience to bring to you. And I've spoken at a few different places. You might recognize some of these, or spoken or have been partnered with some of these organizations, like the Wall Street Journal did an article, Camping World, et cetera, and so on. I'm part of the Escapees RV Club. For any of you who know them, they're actually based out of Texas. And you might be a member. So let's get into these predictions. Now, I want to tell you that in today's environment, in this very fast-paced environment that we've all been living in, especially in the last 2 years, it is a good news, bad news scenario. But my goal today is to help you leverage all opportunities, no matter the situation. Even in bad news situations, there are always silver linings and opportunities to find things that can work, especially these days when everything has gone remote. So let's dig into these 7 remote work predictions for 2022 and what you can do about them. Now, prediction number 1, this one cracks me up because the economists got it wrong. And that is that the job market remains strong and job seekers and aspiring business owners will have more options than ever. Now, the reason why I poke a little bit of fun at the economists is because in the month of January of this year, all of the economists were saying that January would be a terrible job market, that we were going to lose tons of jobs. They thought, the unemployment rate was going to skyrocket even more. No jobs added, and they got it completely wrong. They got it wrong by about 300,000 jobs. The national unemployment rate is actually hovering at around 4%. There is a hiring frenzy, but there's a labor shortage. You probably have seen all of the headlines about the Great Resignation, people leaving the workforce, people retiring early, which, has been spun up as something really exciting and positive, but you'll see here in a minute, that isn't the case for everyone. And there were record businesses started in 2020 and 2021. And so for job seekers, including people who are over 50 and people who do want to start businesses, we are still in an incredibly strong market. So it's a very good time to make a move. And we'll talk about what that move should be because it's different for everyone, but I want you to at least feel hopeful that there are options out there for you. Now, what does this really mean for you? Well, you have more choices than ever. Now, it's also a really good time to negotiate things like your salary. Employers are offering things like hiring bonuses right now, retention bonuses if you stay for a certain period of time on the job, and even referral bonuses where if you refer a friend or family member. So it's really a good idea to tap into all of these opportunities and just at least ask if they're offering these things, because in some cases, they aren't going to tell you. So you have to be a self advocate, which I think you're learning a lot about all of that inside of Austin Up for sure. Also, though, if you do want to start a business or you want to start something on the side, it's a really low hurdle in terms of cost. It doesn't take much to start a business these days. I run a business entirely from just a laptop and sometimes a cell phone. And the most recent fancy thing I bought was this microphone that you see right here. I only have had this for a few months. So now I will say that the the biggest barrier is really technology, right? We've already talked a little bit about that today. And so, yeah, technology can be for some people something that is a little intimidating, but let me tell you this, if I can do it, almost anyone can, because I am not tech savvy. So again, I hope that prediction number 1 leaves you with a lot of hope. Now let's talk about prediction number 2. This one's a little controversial because I see this differently than a lot of people. And I believe that the hybrid remote work model will start to fail. Now, I don't think it'll completely fail in 2022. I think it's going to take time, but here's why. It's costly. It's very costly for employers and businesses to run both a model where people work remotely and work in the office at the same time, at least the way employers are trying to do it now, which is, come into the office 3 days a week, work from home the other days a week. It's hard. It's disruptive. It's disruptive to you. It's disruptive to the employer. It's costly. And people don't like it. People want choices. That's the bottom line. And so I like to work with employers and people who do hiring on how can we come up with the best options to give your employees or your workers what works for them. And so it might look different. And I do think that we have a little bit of more, I would say another year or 2 of people trying to figure this all out. I think it's difficult, and I am on the side of the employers as well. Like I'm not here to, say anything negative about employers. They're doing their best, really. They're doing their best. And so what does this really mean for you? It means hang in there. If you're someone who is working for someone and you really do want to go remote and it's not working for you right now, just hang in there, because I do think that employers and companies are trying to work through this. What you can do, though, is really be a partner. Think of yourself as a strategic partner with a potential employer or an employer you might be talking to or hopefully working for, and try to position yourself as someone who can really help them figure this out. And there are ways to do that, including helping them understand what a remote policy would look like, showing them that you can work from anywhere with no disruptions, et cetera. However, if you aren't finding the jobs that you like that give you a remote option, or you're with an employer that just isn't going to work for you, then you might consider leaving your employer or starting a business, because again, right now is a really great time to do it. I don't think this is going to last. I don't think employers and companies are going to keep throwing free money at people just to attract talent. That's what they're doing right now. At some point, that economic model doesn't work. So I think you've got a good 3 to 6 months to really leverage these opportunities. I'm not telling you to quit a job if you have one, but what I am saying is if you don't like the situation you're in now, I can almost guarantee that there is a situation out there that could work for you. Now let's talk about then prediction number 3. This is called the mashup model. I think I made this up. I don't know, but I believe what the mashup model will grow. Now you may have heard of this called side work or side hustle or gig work. And people have been doing this for many, many years, and that is working side jobs in addition to their main job. And I think that's just becoming more common. Now it's becoming more mainstream. Employers recognize this. They understand that this is what works for people. People want options, and people also understand that they can't really depend on one source of income anymore. And they need to diversify their income, not just your investment income, but your employment income as well. And so what does this really mean for you? It means that it might be worth thinking about having more than one job. A lot of people here probably grew up in an era where you had one job and that one job would pay all of your bills. Maybe, maybe not, but I know that my era and the era above me, that's just what we were grown up believing. But it's a good idea to think about having more than, or if you're a business owner, I should say, having more than just one business income stream. So for example, in 2020, when a lot of small businesses were impacted, restaurants, retail, they had one business income stream. Maybe that was people coming in and buying their food or coming into a store and buying clothing. And that was their only income stream. And that got turned upside down overnight. So a lot of those businesses had to get really creative with, well, how do we do things online? How do we have additional income streams from this one business? So if you are a business owner, or you're thinking about becoming a business owner, you need to think about multiple income streams in that business. And lastly, yeah, you do need to get a little bit more practice with remote technology, but not that much, not as much as you think. The fact that you're all here, then we're able to log in and turn your cameras on and off and tune into this and jump on other Zoom calls, you're already ahead of a lot of people. But there probably is some more that you could be doing. So here are a couple of tips for you to consider. At a minimum, get to know things like Google Workspace or Google Drive, because that's where everyone is working these days. That is where collaboration is happening remotely. You've also maybe heard of things like Dropbox. Dropbox is for file sharing, where you can share things with people back and forth instead of emailing a million times. You put things in one file and you can all share it. And so just learning a few key remote technologies can go a long way to getting you in the right position to actually be a viable candidate for either a remote job or running your own remote business. Let's talk about prediction number 4, that learning access along with diversity, equity, and inclusion will expand. Now, let me talk about this. These are big, fancy words. What does this all really mean? Well, in 2020, when a lot of people were forced to go online or forced out of jobs and figure out new ways to make money, it was really hard for some people. Specifically, if you are sight impaired or hearing impaired, you probably found yourself really struggling because the remote world wasn't built for you, sadly. People with learning disabilities struggled in the beginning because the remote world wasn't built for them either. And so what we're seeing now is that this is improving quite a bit. Today, you have live transcription for this presentation, which, by the way, Austin Up is one of the only organizations that I see doing that. And that's incredible, because just something as simple as that can give people better experiences working remotely. So I'm excited to see that. You will see more and more of that as companies and employers and business owners are catching on. So what does this really mean for you? It means that going remote continues to improve. So we're seeing better technology. We're seeing better access to technology. We're seeing better ways of teaching people as well. The other thing that happened is when everything went online, there were a lot of people who maybe were really good at teaching or training in person, but not very good doing it online. It didn't translate. And so you might have experienced personally just some really terrible teaching experiences online or learning experiences. And luckily that's improving. There's better training and support for people at all levels. People who are 50 plus, we're starting to see more resources for them as well. And just making this easier and more streamlined for a lot of people, including people with different disabilities and people in marginalized communities as well. So things are looking up. Let's talk about prediction number 5. This one might be the one I'm most passionate about, because this is the population that I work with most, and that is that early retirees will begin to return to the workforce. I already mentioned that early retirement, that storyline, was spun as something positive. And for some people, it was. They realized they could retire earlier than they thought. Yay. Maybe they had more money that they knew, than they realized. But they also maybe realized they had to cut back or curtail their lifestyle, or move some money around, take out Social Security earlier than they wanted. And so some people were actually just forced into retirement before they were ready. Now, on February 1st, just a few days ago, CNBC reported that half of the population born between 1946 and 1964, and even a little bit beyond that, have little savings. And when you look at the rise of inflation and you look at these savings accounts and on some people being underinvested, this is what worries me. And this is why I do what I do. This is why I say that remote work is the new retirement plan for a lot of people, because it can literally help extend your income if you fit in this category. So what does that really mean for you if this applies to you? You may be returning to the workforce. I think that's probably why you're here today. Or maybe you're starting a business or expanding a business. But that may include working part-time or full-time for yourself or someone else. And again, I know that a lot of people that I work with, they don't want to work full-time. They really do want part-time work, but they want to be able to make enough money part-time so that they don't have to cut back or experience some of these other impacts. So like I said, I believe that remote work is the new retirement plan for a lot of people. It is for my father. My father is 78 years old. His name is Arnie, by the way. And he's in a situation where he doesn't have enough money for retirement. He still works. And by the way, he works 100% online. He teaches kids how to play flute and saxophone online. He doesn't love it, if I'm being honest, but he has to do it because he can't be driving around to people's houses and trying to teach them in person at this point. So thank goodness he has me to help him figure out how to make this all work. The prediction number 6 is that hiring bias will need to be addressed. And I'm certain that many of you here today have probably faced hiring bias. So what is this? This is when you go to submit a resume or you go to apply online or on one of these job platforms, you're actually dealing with artificial intelligence. You may know that, you may not. These are robots. They're looking at your resume. These robots, unfortunately, in some cases, are built with some bias, not on purpose. It's just how they're built. So they may be kicking out resumes for things like race, gender, and age. That's why I opened this whole discussion today talking about why I don't say that I have more than about 20 years experience as a corporate trainer, because I don't want to get kicked out of a system or, be penalized for that. I should be rewarded for that. And I am in a lot of situations, but not by the robots. So these systems will need to be corrected because we have a hiring shortage, right? We have employers who are desperately trying to hire people, but their systems are actually, in some cases, discriminating against people, which means nobody's winning. And then there's a lot of people like you all here today who have a lot of talent and a lot of experience who would like to get these jobs. And so we have to fix these systems to make sure that all of these things sync up. So what does this really mean for you? It means that remote work is actually a really great solution because it can combat various forms of discrimination. You don't have to go into an office. You don't have a boss, breathing down your neck necessarily, especially if you plan to work for yourself. You can worry less about the robots, less about artificial intelligence, because you can kind of do things on your own. A lot of the people that I work with, they never even submit resumes or, go to these online job platforms because they learn how to do things on their own terms. They know how to use like LinkedIn, for an example, for networking. They know how to use Facebook groups for networking. They know how to leverage their own network through things as simple as email to find different opportunities. So remote work, again, is a really great opportunity if you are facing some of these hiring biases. And last but not least, one of my favorites is that work from home becomes work from anywhere. I love this because as someone who RVs and RV'd full time for 4 years, I was able to work from my RV, which was fantastic. And a lot of people are just really tired of working from home. It was mentioned in the beginning today that people feel isolated. I feel isolated. I didn't think that would happen, but I recognized recently that I feel kind of lonely and I miss working in a team. And so being able to work from anywhere actually gets me into communities, my peer communities, where I have RVing friends and nomadic friends. I want to, work while I travel or go on vacation, or, like I mentioned, working from Thailand. So the nice thing about this, what this means for you is, if you can relate to that, is that luckily we're seeing more flexibility from employers. They're not there yet 100%, but they're trying. A lot of these employers, they just come from the background of, they want to know what their employee is doing at all hours of the day, and are they being productive? And when they can't see you, that just makes them nervous. But again, there are ways to work around that. And luckily, this is becoming more and more flexible. And the internet is getting better. So if internet concerned you, because for RVers, we're always concerned about the internet. Like, we always need good internet. Luckily, that's improving as well. 5G has been rolling out. You can do simple things like tether from your phone to get data. You don't only have to rely on Wi-Fi. There are just so many new technologies out there that make this much easier than you would think. And one thing I would encourage you to do is practice working from a variety of locations before going all in. So if you're someone who does want to work remotely while you're on vacation, I would encourage you to practice that a little bit, because if you do get a job offer or you do run a business, you want to make sure that you're really comfortable, that you can be online, that you have access with no disruption. That's really important. So I would encourage you to practice if that is something you want to do, and if that's all new to you. And so those are the predictions. Now, I do want to go into just a little bit more training on, I want to give you a little model to help you move forward. But before I do want to check in and just see if it's a good time to take a pause, if there are any questions that I should answer, or if you think I should just keep going and move on. I'm just going to pause for a second. I'm trying to see if I can see the chat, actually.
I
See
don't
if
see
anything's
anything in the
coming up.
chat right now. I think you're good to keep on going.
Okay, perfect. I have just a little bit more, and then I know we'll get into Q&A. So I do want to take everything you just heard, and I want you to think about it through the lens of two different people. You may relate to these people, you may not. Let me take a sip of water here. Two people. I call one of them Erin the Explorer and the other one Rita the Relaxer. And they just heard this presentation. They're processing it. They're thinking about it, and they're taking it all in. And they have two different ways of approaching everything that I've put in front of them today. So let's look at Erin the Explorer. She's a big ideas person. She gets really excited about stuff. She likes to use sticky notes like I do. And her way of approaching this is she's jotting down ideas everywhere. She's like, okay, popcorn ideas, idea. She starts Googling remote work, because that's what a lot of us do, is you start Googling remote work, seeing what comes up. And what that does is it puts things in front of you, which can be good, but it also exposes Erin to jobs that she doesn't think she's qualified for, because a lot of these jobs are written from the perspective of the employer looking for what we call the magical purple unicorn, people that don't actually exist, right? Because, and I've written many, many job descriptions that come from HR. We always would write those job descriptions for the perfect human being, knowing that we would never get the perfect human being in the job. But if we got close enough, we could train them. And so if you're like Erin and you're seeing these jobs and you're feeling like, well, I'm not qualified for them, it's not your fault. That's just how they're written. And I'm going to give you some tools here in a minute to approach those jobs that you might be seeing. So Erin closes her laptop before she applies to anything and feels discouraged. And she has thoughts, for example, like, well, you know what, there really aren't that many jobs. There's not enough of them, or I don't have enough skills. I hear that a lot. Or I won't make enough money because I have to take a pay cut, but I don't really have that much remote experience. Okay, I worked from home on Zoom here and there, but like, is that really remote experience? Or the other one I hear a lot is, where are the real jobs? Because all I see are scams in the remote work world. So if you have thoughts like these, you're not alone. This is really common. Erin is just kind of representative of a lot of people that I work with. Erin, in fact, represents me When I first got out there in 2016, I had all of this experience and all of these thoughts, despite being really qualified, by the way. But this is just kind of stuff that goes on in our heads, which I'll address here in a minute. Now let's contrast that with Rita. I call her Rita the relaxer because she looks impossibly fresh, like she just woke up from a nap, and she pulls out her phone and she looks at her recent job alerts based on keywords. So if you don't know about this, this is something you can do on your phone, depending on, if you use your phone a lot. I do. It's always in my pocket. I set up job alerts. I go on Facebook jobs. I go on Craigslist jobs. I go on different LinkedIn jobs or other job platforms, and I set up my alerts with keywords that match the type of jobs that I want. And then every day I get notified when there's a job available. So that's what Rita does. And because she has these alerts in her phone, she applies to 3 jobs in less than 15 minutes because she already has a remote work resume ready to go and loaded up. So she just clicks a button and applies to jobs, and she gets 2 interviews set up before the end of the week. Very different approach for Rita than for Erin. Now I am Rita now today. So I am, she reflects me. And the reason I'm putting this example in front of you is I actually landed myself an accidental job a couple of months ago because I always practice what I teach. And I was just scrolling online, one day I got this job alert for a local tour guide. And while that isn't remote, it's at least in the area that I'm currently in right now. And I thought, well, that might be fun. Look, I could probably give a tour. I can talk to people. So I applied and I got that job offer within one day. And then I negotiated the price up on that job offer. And now I have this nice little side gig giving people tours. I take them on little history tours and beer tours and wine tours. And honestly, it's the most fun I've had, and I get paid to do it. And so that's an example of a side gig that I mentioned earlier that can just help supplement my income when, I feel like maybe I don't want to go all in on my business. Because I got to tell you, running an online business 100% of the time gets a little isolating. And sometimes I need to be around people. So that's an example of Rita. And as you know, we've mentioned earlier, I have experimented with like 12 different ways to earn income. And I got really tired of spinning my wheels. It took me, a number of years to figure out how this all worked. And I was doing things like in the beginning, I was asking people on Facebook, like, where do I find jobs? How do I get remote jobs? I was getting lost in online job platforms. I was like Erin, where I got really discouraged. And I thought, well, am I really qualified? I don't know this technology. I don't know the name of that technology. How would I ever get hired? And then the worst of all, I started throwing myself at every job opportunity, and even the ones I didn't want, like even really low paying jobs, just because I thought I had to. And that's a really terrible position to be in. It didn't make me feel empowered. It made me feel pretty terrible about myself. Like, well, I guess I really am not qualified. And so I thought, there just has to be a better way. And so after all of that experience and going through all of those jobs and then running my own business and really understanding remote work and how it all works, I decided that I would create a system around it. And remember, I'm a former corporate trainer. And I'm also, I have my degree in counseling. I'm not a practicing therapist. I should say that. I don't offer therapy because I'm not qualified to do so. But I can leverage my background, and I was able to come up with a system based on my experience and based on the experience of hundreds of people. And I call it the remote work income system. And it's super simple. It's made up of 3 key elements. I'll go through this really quickly because I do want to be respectful of time. And please, if you need to stop me here, just stop me. And like I said, I've got another free training I can send you to if you want to finish this out. But it really boils down to your identity, your income, and your independence, meaning how you think about yourself and how you identify yourself will lead to the income that you can generate, especially at this point in our lives when you might be transitioning into retirement or in retirement. And the income leads to your independence. Okay. And independence looks really different for everyone. So this is the solution I created to make this whole thing less painful and easier and faster. So with identity, what gets in the way of identity is when you're really attached to your former job title, like I was, corporate trainer. This is my badge once again. And when you're trapped in your own identity, it's really hard to see your value. It's hard to get new job opportunities or create a business or expand a business if you're really set on an identity that you have. For example, teachers who we know are going through a really big shift right now. We're seeing a record number of teachers leaving the profession, which is incredibly sad. But I work with a lot of teachers and they say things to me like, I've only, quote unquote, ever been a teacher. And so what can I do now? How do I work remotely? What do I do? And which a lot of teachers have learned how to work remotely. And so things like that get in the way of knowing your own value. And that really gets in the way of earning better income. So what I tell people to do is to reinvent your identity. And what I mean by that is you reinvent it on a resume, you reinvent it on LinkedIn, you reinvent it in conversations with people. And to do that, you have to really draw on your strengths and your skills. And you really have to be able to talk about how you add value to employers, customers, and clients. And the reason I know you can do that is because anyone who's reached the age of 50 plus have a lifetime of experience and a lifetime of things that you can draw on to do that. It's easier said than done. I get it. It took me a while to walk away from the old badge and try to reinvent myself at that time into an RV blogger. That's what I became. That was like my first thing was I'm an RV blogger now, which, I felt like an imposter when I was saying that, even though I was in fact an RV blogger. And so some of that stuff this is where my counseling background comes into play. It's just that we tend to undervalue our skills and strengths. And sometimes the employers don't make it easier on us with their hiring process. But what that does is it means that you may be making less money. Because when you undervalue your skills and strengths, you're probably not doing things like negotiating your pay. You're not asking for those raises. You're not setting your prices if you are running your own business at a high enough rate. And I hate to see that. And if you don't know what your skills are, or you don't know, or you're undervaluing your skills, I should say, then it's really hard to even know what the right opportunities are, right? You might be like me, kind of throwing yourself at any job that kind of crosses your path, right? And so that, that always breaks my heart. I see you coming off a camera. So chime on in. Tell me where you'd like me to go from here.
Well, we're getting so many questions. I'm just
good.
thinking, but I love where you're going. Do you want to just finish this? Is there just one more screen about this in particular? And then we can
why don't I
segue
finish up identity and then I'll take some
perfect.
questions. And then if we have time, we'll go. If not, we'll kind of wrap it up.
All right.
Okay. So one thing I would encourage everyone to do, and I'm almost certain Austin Up has resources on this, would be doing skills inventories. And I know a lot of people have done them, but I'm always surprised when I see so many people who have never done a skills inventory, or it's just been a really long time. Like they say, well, I did one in college. And it's like, okay, well, or back in high school. It's like, no, you really need to do one now, because what happens is when you do one now, you will see that you have way more skills stacked on top of each other that you maybe never saw before. And these two snapshots are examples of my clients who do different kind of skills inventories. And they're always so shocked when they think that something they take for granted, because we take our skills for granted. We think, well, if it's easy, it's not really a strength. And why would anyone pay me for it? Well, that's why you should do it, is because you're good at it and it's easy. And that's why you should get paid, and get paid handsomely. And so when you can see that on a piece of paper, and you can see that something as easy as being a good communicator or listening or whatever else it is for you is something you could actually get paid to do in a remote job or offering it as a remote service, it's kind of eye-opening. And so don't underestimate your skills and be sure to reinvent your identity. One last thing on that. Interestingly enough, Erin has the college degree and Rita doesn't, because a lot of people say, well, Camille, I wasn't formally educated in XYZ. So how could I possibly do it as a profession? We're not trying to be rocket scientists here, right? I don't think. So yeah, if you're going to be a rocket scientist, well, sure, you need to go to school for that. But in these days, in today's environment, you don't need to go back to school and get a big fancy 4-year or plus degree to do a lot of these jobs. You just need to know your strengths. You need to reinvent your identity. And maybe you need to take, a couple of tutorials on YouTube for free, or some low cost training, or retool a little bit here and there. But that's exactly what Rita did. And that's why Rita's getting the jobs and Erin is not. So I'm going to just pause there and tell you, you're more qualified than you think. Let's take some of these questions and then we'll kind of go from there.
So we have some comments, but we also have some questions. So how do you find
Sure.
legit remote jobs?
Yeah. Okay. So legit remote jobs that are not scams are a couple of things that you can do. Number one, the most legit jobs are going to be found on the most legit platforms. So for example, Flex Jobs is a platform that you do pay for. You don't have to pay for it in the beginning to get access to some of their tools. But if you want to apply to the jobs there, you do have a small membership fee. But the reason for that is they qualify the jobs, they kick out any scams, and they vet those jobs to make sure that they are real. So there are some job platforms where they make sure that the only jobs there are real. Secondly, though, if you want to go onto a free platform like Craigslist, which there are loads of scams there, what you need to do is be really mindful that you don't fall into the trap of giving up information like your social security number, your credit card number, and never send anyone a check that's asking you to, buy equipment. So a good gut check can help you weed those out. And then lastly, you can go, if you do find something on a site like Craigslist or, any of these other sites that may not, be a paid for site, you can go to Glassdoor. And on Glassdoor, you can vet these jobs and see what other employees are saying about the company. And you can really vet some companies there as well. So that's how you go look for those real jobs is, you sometimes you get what you pay for, but secondly, do a good gut check.
Excellent. So can you explain how best to do a remote resume? What are some things that you would include in a resume that would make people
Sure.
know that you're looking for remote work?
Sure. Yeah, I do. And I do loads of resume training inside of remote work school. But to give you just a high level, a remote work resume has a couple of key elements. The first element at the top of a resume, if you all have one in front of you or can remember, usually people say things like objective. And rather than use the word objective at the top of your resume, you really want to use that space for high value things like your title, which is where you reinvent your identity. And you really want it to say something like summary or summary of qualifications. And you want a very short paragraph that talks about who you are, what you do, and how you add value. And then throughout the resume, you want to use keywords like worked remotely or dispersed teams. That's kind of a catchphrase for working remotely, or virtually. So for example, let's pretend that Rita, the relaxer, is a virtual assistant, which is all the rage. Everyone wants to be a virtual assistant right now because it's kind of the easiest job to get into. If you're newer to this, it's like an administrative assistant, but just virtually. And so with something like virtual assistant at the top of her resume, she would literally call herself a virtual assistant. And then she would use keywords like worked remotely for ... or coordinated virtual teams. So you have to use a combination of keywords as well as really telling the story of who you are and how you add value. And that's a whole training unto itself.
I could see that. It's complex, and you don't want people to be considering you if they're not going to consider you as being remote. So
That's right.
it's important to have it intermixed, it sounds like.
Yes. Yes.
Do you have insurance when working remotely?
You mean health insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's very, very personal. And it really comes down to a couple of things. One, if you're going to work for someone else, like if you're going to work for a company, but work remotely and they offer health insurance, that's a great way to get health insurance. However, if you're going to work for yourself, then it really comes down to the state that you work in and what your situation is. I mean, if you can buy something on the open market, if you have a subsidy in your state, I mean, it's really, health insurance is the most complicated of all the things related to working remotely. That and technology, right? Those are the two most complex things you could talk about.
So I don't know if you know this answer, but what would
Sure.
be the best state to have the best health benefits working remotely? Do you
Oh,
know that?
it really depends. I will tell you that I've been surprised with how good the health insurance benefits have been in California, because California has such a bad rap for everything else. But we are self-employed, and the health insurance has been pretty affordable here
Okay.
for, the plans that we have. I don't know what it's like in Texas.
Mhm.
I would have no idea. There's some states that are better than others. I don't know that there's a best state. It really, really is a personal choice.
There's so many complex things. It
Yeah.
comes down to your partner, if you have children and your
Oh yeah.
age, all that.
Right.
Okay, what are some of the biggest challenges that you help people overcome when it comes to switching from traditional in an office career to remote work?
Yeah.
What's the
Eh,
biggest challenge?
Yeah. So again, there I see about three core things because everyone's different, right?
Mhm.
So one of the biggest challenges I see is, and I've already talked about it, is identity. That's got to be the first one where people are just so steeped in what they've always done that it's really hard for them to see, well, what else is possible. For example, I met a woman the other day who is a lawyer, very skilled. She's been doing it for 35 years, but she doesn't want to keep doing it. She's like, I'm exhausted. It's hard. It's stressful. I'd really like to be a virtual assistant, but like, how do I do that? And I'm like, well, you've managed your own business for years. So I imagine you know how to do calendaring and email, you know how to book things, you know how to work with
Mhm.
file share. Like you're clearly qualified to be a virtual assistant. And her response to me was, well, I don't want to lie, as though she can't call herself that because she's only ever been a lawyer. And it's like we get really caught up in that storyline that like we're lying or we're not being honest when we call ourselves something new. And the reality is we are lots of things. We are multidimensional people with lots of gifts and talents. Just because we had a title for however long doesn't mean we can't be something new. That's number one. Number two, I think the other biggest challenge is people who like structure. So if you're someone who really likes, the structure of a 9 to 5, you come in at this time, you do this at this hour, you take a lunch break at noon, that can be a big struggle if you work remotely and you have no one like telling you where to be and what time to do it at. My husband is one of those people. He really misses the structure. He finds himself kind of like, well, maybe I should do a load of laundry now. And it's like, So that's another big one for a lot of people. The third one is really going to depend on the person and what resonates with them. I think technology, unfortunately, for some people can be a little bit daunting, but I think we make it feel worse than it is. The reality is technology is hard for everyone. Even you'd be surprised, even people, even the millennial and the younger generation who I rarely work with, but sometimes I do. They turn up as a client and I'm like, why are you here? And they're like, you know what? I don't know I don't get this technology stuff. I'm like, really? So I think we're all in the same boat. It doesn't feel that way sometimes.
And how do you find, I know we already talked about how you find jobs. How do you really determine if the job is remote? Sometimes do you find that the employer is kind of hiding that so people can't find it purposefully? And how do you kind of figure
Well,
that out when you
it
look at
depends. I think right now the employers are going through a pretty tough correction and they maybe are willing to provide a remote option or a hybrid option, but they don't want to like, if you think about this as a negotiation, that's not going to be their opening bid. So
Okay.
what I tell people is you can search when you search on online platforms, always use the word remote in the search or virtual in the search
Okay.
to filter down.
Okay.
That said, if you find a job you like and it doesn't say it's remote, wait until the job offer and then try to negotiate it into a remote position.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can ask during the interviews if they offer remote, if they will, when, you could have that light conversation, but I wouldn't negotiate in the process until you get a job offer.
So I'm just curious because you were talking about the fact that right now employers are having a hard time and they're trying to, it's expensive because they're doing
Mhm.
hybrid. What
Mhm.
direction do you think it's going to go? Do you think it's going to go more remote or do you think
Mhm.
it's going to go more back in the office?
I think it will be very company specific.
Okay.
There are some companies who have already made it their policy that they will be remote indefinitely.
Mm,
They've just come out and said that's it. And I can't remember exactly which ones, but I know it's certainly some Silicon Valley And probably some ones in Austin too. I would imagine Austin, because Austin's usually tracking with Silicon Valley. So I think that, like Google and Twitter, I think some of them are going fully remote. And then some companies are they would like to do it. I will say this, in January of this year, we saw an uptick where 15.4% of jobs went remote. And that's promising. Yeah, that is promising. And so I think that ultimately we will be remote. I really do. It's not going to happen in the next year, but I think about the future in terms of the next 5 years and 10 years, and the next 5 years for sure. For sure. I know some people here are like, well, I don't want to wait 5 years. Yeah. And I get that, but that's where we're headed. We have to be. I mean, if you follow some of the technology stuff, you've got the metaverse that's coming out. People will be working in the metaverse, much as we don't want to believe it. It's probably going to happen. That's what's coming. So ultimately, I think it will be remote, but not for everyone. I mean, you can't serve dinner remotely. You can't, there is some job although you can perform some heart surgeries remotely, believe it or not. Yeah, right. Where doctors can call in on video to their staff. There's robotics involved.
Okay.
I mean, this is where it's headed, Yeah.
Well, we are right at the 3:00 hour. This has been extremely interesting. And are you going to put up some information about people?
Yeah, let me just skip. Yeah, let me just skip to right here. Ooh, do you all know how to use your phones for QR code?
Sure. You bet.
Perfect.
Pop it up. And so why don't you walk us through how to do it?
Sure. If you are familiar with this, you just hold your phone up with the camera lens on, and it should open up a web page. I'll put it on the presentation mode so it's a little bigger. And what that does is it should open you up to the page where I have my free training. You could also go to this website, camilleattell.com/remote-training as well. And then what you'll see there is a free training. It's similar to this, but it is different enough that if you want to just see a different style, that you would get more of that. And then at the end of that training, I do talk about how to work with me if anyone's interested in working with me as a client on your remote work path. And with that, I want to thank you so much. I do have a podcast as well called the Remote Retirement Show.
Okay.
You can find that on all podcast platforms and YouTube as well.
Well, you're just fancy dancy.
I'm trying.
Well, and I wanted to remind everybody too that this presentation will be on Austin Up's YouTube channel. And so if you missed a portion of it, or if you want somebody else to come back to it, please let them know about it. We will do a follow-up survey to everybody who attended, and we do want your feedback. We hope that you'll be honest and transparent with us. We're trying to make these webinars as good as possible, and you couldn't have been a better entree into 2022 and just the perfect information. We're just so happy to have you, and hopefully you'll come back. And if you come in April, we'll set you up to come to that event.
I would love that so much. Thank you. I've had the best time, and thanks I'm seeing all the comments coming in now. Thank you, everyone. You've been a lovely, lovely group. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.